Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Vial, Principal Planner for KTKO Otago Limited, the consultancy that works on behalf of Tahu, whānau and hapu within Otago. I'm joined today, and we're going to do a joint presentation with my colleague Kathryn Gale from our team, who's involved in research, particularly with regards to mahika and water quality. And I'll just allow Dean to introduce himself and his role.
Ko waiaho. Ko waiaho. When we introduce ourselves in Māori, we will say wai, ko wai. What is your water? You know, some people think that's what is your name, but what is your water? And in some cases, we will say that it's a river, or the closest river that we live to. Or in my case, the closest. Well, we haven't got a river in Bluff, but we've got sea all surrounding us. So I always say that my river is Te Ara Kiwa or Fovo Strait, or my water. But it's also asking you, where do you come from in terms of your mother, or what waters were you delivered from, or what womb did you come from? The waters of your mother's water. So it's really important. That's how we say where we're from. So it sort of emphasises the importance of water to us as Māori. But why else do we know that water is really important to us? Because our ancestors told us. That's why. And they've left us karakia, and they've left us traditions around water. And they've said here that water's a treasure or a taonga. But also they've left us a genealogy or whakapapa and we have traditional relationships with water. And I started off today with my welcome to you all here today with an old karakia from Matiaha Tera Morihu from just up the road here at Moidaki. Now he used that karakia to talk about where he come from, where we come from as people, from the void through the dark periods into this world of light that we live in today. And then he said that we come from Māku, which is the moisture, and then to Mahora Nui Aotea, which is that widespread sort of area out in front of us. And he said that they come together to form the sky, and they come together to form the earth. So it's interesting that these old genealogies of ours, these old traditions, give us an understanding of water. And water is one of the first things that come into our being, or into the world that we know it as Māori. So our histories and our traditions tell us that. And when we come down to my third bullet point here, water is in its most precious form at the tops of mountains. So we as Māori say that our mountains are like our tūpuna. On the top of it is like standing on the heads of our ancestors. That's pretty sacred to us. We don't want to stand on those our people's heads because of the sacredness of our head. But the waterfalls on the mountains. But what it's also telling us is that Māori had their own idea of what a water cycle was. We say that Rangi shed tears, Skyfather shed tears, fell onto the mountains, onto the highest point, and flowed down through our waterways and through our awa, and then come out into the sea. And we also say that Mother Earth, or Papa Tuanuku, she cries her tears, but that's the fogs and the water cycle rising back up into the air again. So as Māori, our traditions, when we look back into science today, we say, actually, that's a water cycle. So the tears of Rangi and the tears of Papa Tuanuku are a way of saying that what goes around in a circle like the water cycle. So that's why water is extremely important to us, and it's us as kaitiaki, next page, to look after that. Now we're all kaitiaki. It's a responsibility that we're born into, especially as Māori. We're born into this whole concept is that when you're born, you're here to look after the environment for us and our future generations. And here is a taonga called kaitiaki that sits at the ORC, and within that there's a whole lot of traditional Māori patterns that talk about the potama pattern you'll see there. There's the tōroa, and these patterns represent, in terms of these things here, that represents diversity. That's the mumu pattern, the potama pattern. That's the relationship between Kaitauki Otago and the Otago Regional Council. These things talk also about gaining knowledge. The Pākura pattern, which is it's the stitchy pattern here somewhere, I can't quite see it because it's a bit dark. There's all these patterns that represent diversity, engagement, the whetu watarangi. These patterns talk about the multitudes of people that need this land and use this land for us. So, and the water that's there. The petal over this side represents the connection of human beings to Mother Nature, and on this side, especially important in terms of today's theme, which is the awa or water. So, a lot of these themes in here are about the greater gods, but especially the theme that we're talking about today is water, which is extremely important to the conversation today. It's extremely important for the relationship between Tahu and the councils, and that's why it's sitting here as one of the main tau on our taonga here. So, kaitiakitanga, we're all here today to look to stewards of the land, guardians of the land, and to bring our greater knowledge together, which is what this Potama pattern's about, seeking knowledge. To Kathryn.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Uta Ki Tai, which is hopefully a concept many of you will have heard of. Literally, I understand it means from inland to the coast or from the mountains to the sea, so it's that idea of the water cycle, thinking holistically about the whole thing, in our awa from their headwaters in the mountains right through to where they meet the sea on the coast. And the key kind of thing about Uta Ki Tai is that holistic way of thinking about water is sort of really underpins the Māori and the Kaitahu approach to its management. Is there anything to add? And one of the main values, or the best values about that we have from our water is mahika kai, which literally means food workings. It refers to resources that we can collect from the land and the water. Mahika kai is known as a cornerstone of kaitahutanga, kaitahu identity and culture. In the Ngai Tahu claim that went to the Waitangi Tribunal, it was one of the 9 tall trees of the claim, so it was essentially a ninth of the claim. It's a crucial part of tribal identity. So it's one of the key things that we are concerned about and want to protect today, and it covers not just the species but mahika kai sites, so where you gather them from, how you gather them, the tikanga, the tikaka that's associated with that, so customs and stories and practices that all make up part of Mātaraka Māori, which is Māori knowledge. And I think something I always like to point out about Mātaraka Māori is that it's traditional knowledge, but it's growing, so it's also contemporary knowledge. We add to it as generations go on, so mahika kai is not a past thing, it's a contemporary thing as well. And it's a particular interest of mine, and going back to what Dale said in her presentation, the runaka here see the importance of land use and its effect on water, so I'm involved in a project. We got some funding from MB, the Vision Mātauranga Capability Fund, so the runaka is working together with Lincoln Agritech up in Canterbury, and we're looking into how land use affects water and the effect that has on mahika kai, which makes up the majority of what I do in my day-to-day work. So as you can imagine, high water quality and water quantity are absolutely essential to maintaining our mahika kai and our traditions.
And to round out our presentation to you this morning, I thought I would just talk to you briefly about some of the key aspects of the relationship of Kātahu whānau with fresh water. And they're looking for high water quality, as Kathryn and Dean have alluded to support and provide for that relationship. So key aspects of that relationship, as Kathryn has touched on, is the passing on of traditions, knowledge and values to the next generation. It's the ability to get out there in the environment to gather mahika kai species like tuna or whitebait. It's about passing on that knowledge to the next generation. It's about the gathering of mahika kai to provide for whānau, putting food on the table, which is still a strong element for many Tahu whānau. So they need to be sure that the species are there for them to collect and that they're safe for them to eat. And to provide for hui, tangi, weddings and other celebrations. So if you go to Otago marae, a local delicacy there is the tuaki, or cockle. The continuation of whānau traditions. Fraser whānau at Tari Mouth have an unbroken tradition of whitebaiting across generations. Again, coming back to passing on that knowledge from one generation to the next. The simple experience of being on rivers as individuals and whānau, the use of rivers for recreation, including wakaama and swimming, and finally the relationship with particular rivers as part of their identity as being kaitahu. These include the Waitaki, Kokonui, Wanakadua, Wahimo, Wakoiti, and the Taide. Just a few slides to perhaps illustrate this relationship. This is the Terry Broad and his whānau, so that's eagling. Fishing. The Fraser whānau at Torrey Mouth, Ealing. This is Araha Allison from Katihura Rotnaka. This, I believe, is actually a holiday program they run, taking tamariki out into the coastal estuaries, gathering mahika kai, in this case kaimoana. And finally, this is a project being run by Katehu Raparunaka at Karatani. Ko Hikaroa Te Moka, Hikaroa is the mountain. Ko Wakaiti Te Awa, Wakaiti is the river. Hei Pātaka Waiora. Hei Pātaka Waiora is a project being run by Katehu Rapa in partnership with other organisations like the University of Otago, looking at water quality within the Wakaiti River. And Hei Pātaka Waiora expresses the aspiration of the Runaka for the Wakaiti River to be a healthy storehouse for their people. So to conclude, Kaitahu is committed to working with the Regional Council and with you folk in this room to manage fresh water in Otago. And the outcomes that Kaitahu are seeking from fresh water are consistent with many of the outcomes that are being sought by other Otago communities. Clean and sufficient fresh water provides for ecosystems, activities and values, which is able to be passed down to the next generation in a better state than it is today, expressed in the phrase Motato e moka uri e muriaki ne, for us and the generations that come after us. Thank you.